Well, now I think it's the perfect time to talk about some spooky games.
Matt. Mr. Hugh.
What?
You haven't made a single video in the past month, you incompetent cretin. You completely missed Halloween by a long shot, but now you want to talk about spooky games?
Well,
Why did you decide to do this during the one perfect opportunity you had, but no! You had to fuck that one up too!
Jeez, man, I was just a little burnt out from everything.
I mean, all you do is talk about spooky games anyway. Why don't you decide to talk about something else for once? You should stop being a pathetic idiot loser on the internet and talk about the intricate philosophy of Azur Lane.
Or you could try talk about my funny idea video, man. Do my thing.
Why don't you do this
funny
video
idea?
Okay,
Stop, okay? I mean, Birdman, you're pretty cool, but thanks. But everyone just chill the fuck out. Okay. I was burnt out for a month, so just let me find something new to talk about.
We won't forget this, Mr. Hugh. The day will come where you will pay for your misdeeds.
That's over. I'm really sorry you haven't seen me in about a month. So I got really burnt out over everything, and I just felt like nothing I was making was good, so sorry to the $2 you wasted on October Patreon money, but I'm gonna be working on more stuff, and I should have more time in the future, so thanks for putting up with me. Anyways. Ever since I started playing video games, there's always been this deep sense of desire within me to explore. Whether that's in decrepit fantasy castles, deep walled-off areas just for my reach, or from goddamn Kirby and the Amazing Mirror on Game Boy Advance. There has always been something fascinating about unfinished or distant video game areas, especially ones that make you look off into the background and wonder, what's over there? What's its story? Can I explore there? And I've never gotten that feeling more than from Dark Souls. Video game forest levels. Well, yes, Dark Souls has instilled this desire to explore way more than any other game. I shouldn't be talking about this. Go away. Video game forest levels combine my love of nature with a large expanse of blended scenery that inspires major amounts of curiosity from me. Forest levels usually include ancient structures or castles that are also incredibly interesting to traverse. While these aren't particularly forests, I still count them to be part of forest levels, since the best ones are connected to forest areas. So if you hear me talking a little bit beyond forests, please just don't get mad at me. The most amazing forest area I've ever seen would have to be the Holy Forest in Kingsfield, the ancient city. Now, bear with me, this game looks like garbage. Not only is this entire game an underrated classic and incredibly fun to explore on its own, the Holy Forest is a beautiful resting area that you come across after a dangerous climb through the ancient city. At this point in the game, you've been playing for about 5 to 10 hours and have been stuck underground for the better half of your time. So upon traversing one of the longest vertical sections in the game, you come across one of the most mystical and unexpected overworlds you'll see. Upon my first playthrough of Kingsfield 4, I was completely taken aback by this forest. Its winding paths, hidden crevices, and gentle blue fog enveloped me while being perfectly complemented by its music. I know this is an incredibly low quality PS2 game that looks as bad as my video art, but I still find this area to be incredibly beautiful. The entire atmosphere of the area makes me desperately want to explore beyond the forest hills and the dense blooming trees and wander the mystical expanse of fog and fireflies. It reminds me of looking up at the sunlight bleeding through the tree line at Firelink Shrine. Speaking of Firelink Shrine, this game was also made by From Software, who seem to have a knack for this sort of beautiful world building. If you look at the Darkroot Basin in Dark Souls, you get a similar vibe. It's more dreary and dark, but the same harsh cliffs and mystical forest remains. I don't get the same sense of exploration here since most of the area is laid out for you, but the tall cliffs and dense forested areas around the Undead Parish have always made me curious to adventure through them, especially the river running under Sen's fortress that gets my thoughts racing about undiscovered natural areas. Final Fantasy XII is a game full of natural areas, not exclusive to just woodlands, though there are 3 different areas in the game of dense forest. There are plenty of places that are just as good and give out the same natural ambience. None of these areas are as complex as the Great Crystal, which is an immense structure that looms within the deepest caverns of Gyrovagan, another ancient city with much more sophistication than what you see in Kingsfield. But I don't see any damn trees here at all. You can have good levels that aren't forests, of course, but Final Fantasy XII has both. Each forest has that dense expanse of trees, whether you're walking on massive branches or exploring through a jungle so thick that it blocks out the sun. They all have the same air of mystery, even the Ariut village. The entire town is on massive ancient arch trees, and if you look out in the distance, you see a view akin to the awe of peering out at Ash Lake and seeing an endless expanse of fog and distant worlds. There might as well be 100, hell, even thousands of VR villages, just like the one you're standing on, that you'll never be able to see, but it runs the imagination wild to peer into those distant tree lines. Imagine you find yourself playing a game countless times, to a point where you can go anywhere, do anything. Ubisoft. You even broke the game's HUD by increasing your stats beyond an unthought amount. But there you find, after searching for hundreds of hours fruitlessly, a lengthy path to a completely hidden oasis, a completely undiscovered area by anyone else. This is what players found in Shadow of the Colossus while searching for the last great secret. An epic tale on its own that would deserve a separate video that Jacob Geller made better than I ever could. However, it wasn't what players were looking for. It is amazing to see this unused area with vague purpose that wasn't cut from the final product, just kept there with the intention that nobody would find it. Finding a beautiful forest resting area is akin to spelunking into the deepest caves and discovering a gentle lake or an ancient artifact previously unknown to exist. I've barely played Shadow of the Colossus, but this secret grove still somehow has an effect on me. Along with the intro cutscene on the PS2 version that displays a lush forest that leads into the actual setting of the game, and it's beautiful. There's something magical about PlayStation 2 era forests, with so much aliasing, blurring between leaves, intense bloom from sunlight seeping through the trees, and the charm of a lower render distance causing fog to obscure the landscape makes all these forests way more beautiful. Especially the one in Shadow of the Colossus, the modern variation of the intro forest just doesn't do it for me. The magic is gone as it tries to look more realistic and ditch the fantasy vibe. There may be nothing at all within these forests, but there doesn't have to be. Just the thought of uncovering neat little secrets or crumbling, overgrown structures is enough to evoke the desire to explore. Sadly, real-life forests aren't like this at all. While they can be incredibly relaxing, there's always that sense of pre-discovery. Everything here has already been found or seen by somebody else. There's no untouched secrets within a forest, with an ancient treasure that makes you special, and they can always be tainted by other people. A game that takes this aspect of humanity tainting natural areas and somehow making it interesting is Pikmin. Since you play as a tiny alien that crash landed on this Earth-like planet, everything is new. Thusly so, a Duracell AA battery is magnificent, and a 7-Up bottle cap turns into the almighty thirst quencher. Of course, Pikmin is able to instill wonder into these everyday objects because it's a video game. You actually benefit from picking up weird trash you found on the ground instead of being called weird by your neighbors. So, video games offer this unique perspective on not just forests, but any setting imaginable. Since you can create any world you want, your desire knows no bounds. Your world could be limited to a single tree with which all life revolves around, floating in space, or a one-to-one replica of Brazil in hell. This untainted perspective on ancient structures and forests is what makes them all the more interesting. Sure, I could see an old castle in real life, but it's already been cleaned up and left to rot in the modern world. In Dark Souls 2, you see the remains of a dying nation left over from a war that's been reclaimed by nature. You find unique objects unearthed by anyone, mostly because almost everyone's dead or dying, but you still feel cool. In reality, you get nothing but disappointment over going through forests intersected by highways, bleeding into the modern world without any noteworthy set pieces. In Hollow Knight, you find the most beautiful underground forest and subsequent garden I've ever laid my eyes upon, with rushing waterfalls and lakes of acid, lush ambience and dense bushes, brambles and thorns. In Dark Souls 3, you get nothing because Miyazaki can be fucked to add a dedicated forest level, and no, I do not count Crucifixion Woods, but here, have your daily heaping of poison swamps and ladders! Much like Pikmin, Nikki is able to pull off the same incredible feat of making an interest out of modern structures, only it achieves this differently through insane dream worlds that are only loosely based on reality. There are only a few forests in Nikki in the fan games I played, and while they're not my favorite, they can still be pretty and relaxing. The most noteworthy forest section I can remember is the small forest and lake you come across after a train ride. The forest highway area is also pretty depressing and fun to explore. Nikki doesn't really shine in its forest levels. There are a plethora of other interesting areas that don't really have anything to do with nature. Yume-Tsuki, however, has one of the neatest forest areas I've seen in a 2D isometric game before. The thick trees cover the landscape of grass islands, separated by stagnant waters. I love this area because it feels like an extension of the original docks from Nikki, a place devoid of light or nature, but it makes me imagine an alternative design that leads to a forest clearing if you walk down one path long enough and find yourself within the overgrown forest. This area doesn't say anything particular about the running theme I've got going on about the video, but it's a great example of a forest level that appeals to me from an aesthetic standpoint. There are most definitely tons and tons of forest levels from games that I've never even seen before that I can't include in this video. At least in Shadow of the Colossus, I got a good feel for the Secret Garden intro cutscene. But in games like Ocarina of Time, any of the Halo games, and Hatris on the NES, I don't really have any knowledge or experience with the forests in these games. So I'm here to bring what I like to the table instead of sucking the dick of a game everyone else likes. Which is why I'm talking about Dark Souls yet again, everybody. Let's go! So here was a small showcase of my favorite video game forests, and ones that have stuck out in my mind and inspired my aesthetic tastes. Forests in video games don't really end. They drag out forever and ever on through my mind. Much like real forests, video game forests have trees. But unlike real forests, they have this unique mystical quality about them that makes me ache to explore through them. And now it pains me to sap out all the energy behind this video and leave you to your own imagination. That was fucking terrible. But now that we got to the root of why I love video game forest levels, it's time you treat yourself to exploring some wonderful woodland waysides.